somebody walks into a doctor's office or a psychologist's office, the role of the doctor and the role of the psychologist is to see where the person is out of balance.
Right.
So, there's no escaping it. They start measuring and checking things and checking if things have, if in case of psychology, is there a balanced reaction when you bring up the family or the mother or the father,
Poking the minefield, yeah.
Yeah, you're poking the minefield to see if something explodes because it's loaded with something or other. But I also thought to mention, one of the earliest references we have that all the alchemists got into, which were the emerald tablets of Hermes Trismegistus. They say was the Greek equivalent to Thoth, the god,
Yes.
Egyptian god Thoth. And one of the things about those emerald tablets is they talk about the law of polarities, particularly the one that everybody knows, which comes from there, which is as above, so below. As above, so below. But although we're, again, like this law of polarities, although we've heard it, what does that actually mean? What does it mean as above, so below?
Yeah.
And the other thing that they talk about is the father-son, and they talk about the feminine nature of the moon. And that ties in with the first statement, because what they're saying with as above, so below, not that there's, thank God, there's not like tax laws up in the star belts, but thank goodness, doesn't apply to everything. But what they're saying is the same laws that make the cosmos run, that are in operation in the cosmos, are here on the planet, are here in our bodies, are here in our minds, the same laws. It's quite amazing. So you've got the positive polarity of the sun, and you've got, they're seeing this, the moon as a negative polarity in the sense that it's totally receptive still. It's still building up its oxygen supply and atmosphere, its water supply. And they're seeing the planet, in this case, as a kind of meeting point for those two, although the Earth is definitely inclined to a negative polarity still at the moment. So when we study this, we're studying the kind of language of the cosmos, the language of the universe. Totally. And it's beautiful to extend the sentiment out to, I'm trying to understand how the whole universe works here.
A really good example of this very simple but powerful law behind all things is that, that we can only have this conversation because it's being done through a computer and we have a screen, but at the very heart of that central processing unit, you've got a code working on a binary code, on, off, dash, dot, dash, zero. So you think of the complexity of everything we do with computers, but at the very heart of it, it all comes down to just this binary code. And there's some really interesting modern science coming out where they see that even at the level of atoms and the whole of the universe, there's some kind of binary code or information that all of that hangs around and is powered by. It comes down to this thing about polarity, just two simple powers, some simple cosmic powers at play that everything else manifests out of.
It really is amazing. It's amazing. I read something incredible to do with the two hemispheres of the brain. There's a particular mental problem or brain problem called aphasia. And that is when a person can't use language. They have difficulty with language construction. And that's because they've had a stroke in the left hemisphere.
Right. Yes.
Inclined to have it. This is the logical, organizing, classifying side compared to the artistic, creative, holistic side of the right hemisphere. But what's interesting about the state, aphasia, is that a person can still speak sentences if they sing the sentences.
Oh, wow.
So they can, because they're activating the right hemisphere of the brain.
Amazing.
They can sing a sentence, but they can't just read it in a normal way coming out from the left side of the brain. And another example is when somebody looks at color, because sometimes they're still arguing over this hemisphere thing because they seem to interconnect and cross over at certain points, which is, of course, natural. But when a person recognizes a color, let's say color, because you would think it's a right hemisphere thing, but they argue, well, there can't be anything with hemispheres because when a person looks at color and they recognize a color, the left hemisphere is being activated.
Right.
But now they've found that when children are discovering color, the right hemisphere is active.
Wow.
So what that says is that's the key to get back the magic in your life, actually, because what it says is when you see things afresh and you see them in a kind of holistic way, the right side of the brain is active and you can see things in a kind of more global, spherical sort of way, the integrated aspect of that thing. Later, it becomes classified, which is also important. It's an important function to be able to have those stepping stones and reference points. But it goes into more of a flat, organized, structural thing, like we've done with society. You know, we've kind of organized everything. But a lot of people, I mean, depression's through the roof and suicides because they lose the magic of life. They can't see a flower because when they see a flower, they immediately think simply flower, yellow flower.
Yeah.
And if you're clever, you have the name of the species. But the other side, the right side of the brain, that right hemisphere, is going to look and going to sense the mystery, the magic, the wonder of the flower. We see it as children are learning. They come in with that, wow, everything's amazing. So again, what's appropriate? Sometimes we do just simply need to organize things. Other times to be able to open up the windows, you know, like we open up the windows for fresh air, activate the other side of the brain, and singing, contemplating, letting your mind expand into the bigger picture of things, music, this is dance, but again, not organized dance, because then you flip over into a kind of classification, and then you start losing the flavor, but some freedom inside that dancing or music or singing. And the magic of life keeps swinging through those two polarities.
You know, that's one of the things I love about the Ruby Mountain course and the lessons and practical examples you go through, because it has so many ways of helping to balance the two polarities, because really you can't get that deeper perception and sort of detached awareness where everything seems new and miraculous once again, like when you're a child, unless those two polarities are balanced in ourselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's not impossible. It's again just simple techniques that once you know about them, you can apply it. And I think most people would love to have more of that magical awareness and appreciation and wonder that we had when we were children.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were naturally based in that part of ourselves before it all became habitual.
But it's an odd conversation, isn't it, Darren? Because we're kind of in and out and round about the one thing. You know, the one thing is this law of polarities or duality or symmetry. But it's hard to stay near it because it goes off into the thousands of things that life is.
Yeah.
But to get that point, to get that idea kind of rooted in like a plant or a tree root, it just gives an amazing mental freedom and a mental stability at exactly the same time. The stability and the flexibility, which again, the law of polarity.
That was an amazing journey. We must have touched on 1,000 different things, but again, that is the nature of this law. It goes because it's in everything, and it's almost like going out and collecting berries off trees or little shiny. You know, you walk along the beach and you find those lovely little bits of glass that have been ground smooth, or a curious shell. The more you collect in your little special box, the more you begin to see it, and the more it energizes you, and the more it's easier to locate in that part of yourself where everything's a miracle, really incredible, you know, that we even exist. It's stunning.
And I gave a bit of advice when I first came across this. The harder the example to find, the more value, the more rich, the more you will appreciate it. So it's there in everything. Sometimes you just got to persist a little bit to get it. Once you've got it, can really be like you're just saying, finding a little treasure that starts to explain life directly between you and life, rather than reading it in a book.